Welcome to the SaintsCityMe, a podcast delivering audio love letters to and from the city of New Orleans. I'm Dan, and as always, I'm joined by my wonderful host, Mike. And today we're really pleased to have a friend of ours join us. What are you shaking your head for?
Me?
Know what you did.
No, not you, Mark. He knows what he did. Go on, carry on, mate. Go on.
I apologize. So we're really pleased to have a friend of ours join us today. Our friend Marc. Some of you may know him as Shell Toe Soul on social media. Marc, how are you doing? Welcome to the SaintsCityMe.
Well, funny enough, I'd just seen some Donnie Brasco clip like a minute ago. So I'm glad that I'm a friend of ours rather than just a friend of yours. I feel like I've been promoted. And then there's the whole Big Easy Mafia thing, and I'm well happy. Yeah, I'm good. I'm really good. And super excited to be on the show, as you might have guessed.
We're very excited to have you, mate.
Yeah, absolutely delighted to have you on. We've been, I suppose, interacting a couple of years on social media, and we had the pleasure of spending an afternoon and evening with you last summer. We had a little mini London meetup, didn't we, for Saints fans? And we went and had some beers in East London, went and got some Popeyes, and then had some baseball. It was baseball, wasn't it? Batting cages at Stratford. So that was a really good day out we had. And then we all met up at Hot 8 Brass Band this year, didn't we? And your lovely wife was there in her fantastic outfit.
Loved that. We love New Orleans, obviously, but that extends to all the stupid stuff like gaiters and stuff like that. So if there's a pair of amazing shoes with gaiters on, or lobsters even, she's right up there, front and center. And
she's the girl.
One of the many collections.
Yeah, and that was a great night. And also, sorry, Dan, I was just going to say, as much as Mark's wife looked absolutely fantastic, I had to say Marc looked pretty slick himself. I think, Dan, you commented, he knew about
Yeah, I need to get one of those jazz jerseys.
Well, it took me a long time to find it because obviously, Utah have taken jazz and almost whitewashed the fact that, New Orleans was jazz. And obviously Pistol Pete in the Ring of Honor in the Dome and whatever. And, I'm not going to lie, I think very hard about what I wear to concerts. I never wear the band that I'm seeing. That's my rule. I'll always try and even wear a completely different genre if possible. So, but I thought, and the fact it said jazz and it's the Hot 8, it's not, it was a good thing. So
it was a very good choice. I'm taking a note of that. All right, Mark's elegance is because
not sure anyone's ever called me elegant.
Meme.
No, it was a really lovely
good night.
Sorry. It was a lovely impromptu meetup because obviously I think I've seen the Hot 8 a couple of times in Brighton and less Saints fans in Brighton, or at least that I noticed that they're so just it'll probably come up, but I'm involved in the nightclub industry. That's what I've been. I was a DJ for 30 years and then had to give that up and basically become a sensible person, but I'm still very much involved. And they were playing in one of our nightclubs, so I went down and I tend to try and avoid seeing people in London just generally because guest lists and media types, and it's not so much fun. But the Roundhouse is such a big sort of and they completely rocked it. And I'm sure if there were any guest list types talking over the music, you couldn't hear it because they were so loud. And it was just a really nice impromptu. The fact that we all went for a drink afterwards, and it was pretty amazing. It was pretty amazing.
Yeah.
I have to say that in Brighton, Benny Pete, I was wearing a Joe Horn again. See, I always think about what I wear. So I was wearing a Horn jersey, a Joe Horn jersey, and obviously I was thinking Horn jazz. Not Horn jazz, Horn brass bands and whatever. And he got off the stage and embraced me. So that was a moment. Yeah, that was a big moment for me because he was like, because I did like the telephone sign to him.
Yeah, again, the meme is here. I am taking every note I can conceivably think of. Yeah, but no, it was a great night.
Yeah, you say about Roundhouse. I think it's like the perfect venue for a New Orleans brass band. We saw Trombone Shorty there as well. Wonderful. Right. It's just such a great venue to see that kind of music in. I really enjoyed it. Really good night.
Really is. Yeah. And they were on.
I took my.
Go on, Dad.
I took my daughter as well. It was her first proper gig. Like, she's been to see like One Direction and people like that, but that was her first proper band, playing their own instruments, playing their own songs for the most part. And she loved it. She was dancing away. She absolutely blew her away. So great father moment for me that was as well. And to be with my friend, like my Saints friends as well.
That would be my first thing to say is when you go to New Orleans, go and see them at the Howling Wolf, because if you're lucky like we were, because I've seen them there. Have you seen them? How many people were there? There was 14 people there. There was 14 people.
There were. To be honest, Mark, when I went to see him at the Howling Wolf, they were so on it. I think we know what on it. I think they did a set of it must have been about half an hour. And then it was almost like, oh, fuck this. They just then did a second line out the bar into the street and just carried on playing. You know, alternately, people were playing whilst the others were smoking and doing all that. But actually, that was, you know, I didn't regret that. That was wonderful to see them do that.
Yeah.
And they just couldn't be asked, I don't think, completing the gig in the house.
It was odd. There was like, there must have been about 14 people there. They were on it because they're gangster. I mean, I think my impression of New Orleans is, you know, sure, it's got a great rap scene and whatever, and we can talk about that later, but there's no shame in picking up a trumpet or a sousaphone or and a trombone and going out on the street corner and hustling. And there are, you know, as the Hustlers brass band, there are many brass bands who have that kind of, you know, that edge that you would expect more from a rap group or whatever. And they also like a drink. So and
a smoke.
The saxophonist ended up on my wife's lap because there was some. Yeah, it was messy. It was messy, but it was great. It was, it was really
wonderfully messy. That's what we like to hear.
Yeah, absolutely. And a real New Orleans night. I think. So we had a friend over, and some sort of golf. I don't really know golf, but some sort of golf tournament was on. And in the front of the Howling Wolf, there were some big screens, and he stayed there till 6 a.m. with the staff, eating, drinking, and watching the golf, even though they didn't care about the golf. They just stayed open for this one guy to sit there and watch the golf into the early morning. And hospitality, as we both all know, it is just like, it is natural in that place. And that's just
that one sort of tells you everything you sort of need to know, doesn't it, about what people will be willing to do if they're. And we also know those guys were probably having a good time, because we know the guys behind the bars, whichever bar you go into, they also like a drink and a good time as well. Whilst
I mean, having worked in the nightclub industry, functioning alcoholics are probably the best bartenders, you know. And that's just the way it is.
I've tried every drink behind this bar. I can give you advice on any of them.
I'm gonna slightly backtrack, because I think, Dan, maybe you just want to. I don't know if you want to obviously touch on a little bit of Saints news. Obviously, we won at the weekend. A quick one on that, Mark. How do you watch the Saints? Are you really like? I know obviously Dan tries to watch as many late games as he can, or soccer. Life gets in the way. What are you like?
I watched it. I don't often, but just I don't know. I've got young kids. I've got a 4 and an 8-year-old. I'm later in life to kids, and I actually thought, when I have a baby, I want a kid, and then I can be up all night feeding them and watching the games. That'd be amazing. And of course, born in December and January, and obviously, we had a little bit of postseason action, but not great. What you want is the kid to be born sort of, I don't know, June. So you're doing all night feeds, banging the season and stuff. But it didn't really work out for me. But because of my nightlife life, I am a night owl, and I do tend to watch them. But I'm getting older. It's getting harder. I mean, this week, honestly, I'm knackered, and I didn't want to watch it, and because you stay up and then it's cold and you're alone and it's 3:30 in the morning and you're like, if we fucking lose, I have ruined my week for this. But on the flip side, if we win, who am I going to shake and go, yes, we won?
Yeah.
And I just,
absolutely.
I feel it is one of those things, and you get to the point where it could go either way, and you're like, it's 3 o'clock. You know, I've got to get the kids to school for 8. The night is over. You know, it's done. So I may as well stay to the end. But there is something about you know, if you're not working, if you're not out and about, you're in your house. Obviously, the heating's gone off, and because you should be in bed. And I don't know, there's something very alone. I actually like to watch sports alone. I hate. One of the reasons I got way back into the NFL is I just got bored of football chat, banter, opinions, and like you have mentioned it several times with several people. A lot of us have just gone, you know what? It's nice to be slightly removed from something. Although we all have our opinions are slightly secondary to our enjoyment of it. And I'm quite militant, and I don't know much about X's and O's. I understand the game, but my opinions are worth shit, you know. So when you go through the game later, we're gonna win them all, mate. We're gonna win them all, as far as I'm concerned. You know, because that's why I don't like losing. But if it was a good game and someone did something amazing, and as long as we beat the Falcons twice a year, I don't really care. You know, if we're gonna make a run, that's gonna be amazing. But I'm in it for nothing but pleasure. And if there's something that's going to take away my pleasure, I'm just going to ignore it. I'm just going to ignore it.
Yeah.
Marcus May, his name is annoying.
It's like you said. So I didn't stay up to watch it because I had a health assessment at work early on Tuesday morning. So I was like, I really need to make sure I'm all right for that. But I did get up at 5:45 to watch the game in 40 on Dazan, and they didn't have the fucking game in 40 ready. I got up early to watch the game in 40, and it wasn't there. So I ended up watching the highlights on YouTube, really pissed off, just like I've got up like an hour before I needed to watch
well,
it.
you have mentioned like the as much as Game Pass, and I have to say, apart from, I think it was either the No Call or the Minnesota Miracle, it blacked out for that bit for me and paused, and I'm there screaming at the TV. But I didn't have that bad a relationship with Game Pass that a lot of people obviously have.
No,
but downloading games and watching them, you know, going into work and stuff like that, that's you know, that has to happen because that is invaluable, especially for people who the game is at 4 a.m. You know, 2 a.m. or whatever.
To be fair, if you're a Seahawks fan or a 49ers fan, your games are always late games unless you're away on the East Coast. So more often than not, you're going to need that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
I would say I never had a major issue with Game Pass. I mean, the only issue you get is that obviously it's weird because before I got into the Saints Twitter fandom and had friends, and you know, I was a lonely little Saints fan sitting on my own. Used to sort of check Twitter, and quite often it would be, you know, touchdown and then 2 minutes later on Game Pass that would happen. So I obviously stopped looking at Twitter. The funny thing that I find now is that when we do a Zoom with another Discord, the Saints Block Party, I have to delay.
I've seen it.
My game.
Your language is atrocious, my friend.
Every single time that I'm in there, I have to delay. I think last week, like on Monday when the game was playing, I think the guy Adam who's running it had to mute me because I kept pausing it, trying to get where they were, but obviously giving stuff away unintentionally.
But so you're ahead, even though you're not there.
You're ahead. On Game Pass, I was ahead by about 2 minutes. It was ridiculous. So, and that's the other thing. That now I'm thinking, all right, I'm not going to moan because actually there are people sitting in the States who are sort of a minute and a half behind me.
I suspect that's to do with the betting market. I suspect that is to stop people trying to get bets on before the bookies are on it. Thinking about it now,
I think that might be it. That might be it because that is, absolutely
less chance of it happening in the UK because you know.
Although I was for another sport listening to the radio commentary because obviously the colour of a radio commentary is much more. And I was in the middle of a packed pub in North London. I didn't support a North London team. I was one of the few who was there. It was a North London pub. And the radio was like 60 seconds before the TV. And I'm like, yes! And I'm like, oh, God, everyone can see me. It's like, I just made a sharp exit for the back of the bar and sort of put my head down. But yeah, no,
My brother-in-law works for like the old boy at the football. You see, always got the one earphone in.
To the wireless. I've got my wireless on.
You know,
I was going to say, go on, Mark, go for it.
Well, without going over old ground, you know, it's the Saints tradition. Turn down your TV and turn up your radio, because I used to listen to try and listen to WWL, because not knowing. I mean, I do, and you touched on it as well with the game in 40. Although it's great, you don't learn as much as you do with the full 3 hours, you know, with the little backstories and, and this is coming in and whatever. And I used to listen to WWL, but it's a nightmare to try and sync them. But you would learn more. Yeah. You would just learn more, you know. And again, that's why the full 3 hours is, when you listen to Game in 40, you hear they've cut halfway through an interesting fact or something like that. And it's, it is one of those.
It's the same with Sky Sports, isn't it, to a degree, because they sort of, when they cut to the studio, they play to it sounds dismissive, but they play a little bit to the lowest common denominator.
I know.
They want to build the fan base up. But if you stay with just the US, you get more valuable intel on what's happened in the game, I think.
Yeah, because you've got usually an ex-player or someone who is connected to that team, whereas what we've got in the UK is a generic sports star of some quality, don't get me wrong. And, you know, I always love, you know, I grew up watching Channel 4, Mike Carlson, Nat Coombs, that sort of situation. So I will always want the US commentary. It's just how it is. So. All right.
Yeah. Just quickly wheeling back to the game. So obviously it was a win. We're 2-0, which is good.
2-0, baby.
There, I think 2-0, 2-0. I'm English. I might be European. I'm not sure. But what were your thoughts, Dan? What were your thoughts on it, mate? I mean, I know you said you watched it in 40
from the highlights.
No,
I didn't. No, I didn't. Did I? Because so I watched some of the coaches' tape. I mean, I don't. Yeah, the offense still needs to inspire me a bit more, and I think a lot of that comes down to the O-line. I'm not necessarily buying into the whole. There's a fraction of Saints fans who are saying Derek Carr's garbage. I don't believe that. You've seen the passes he's put to Rashid and Chris Olave that he's not garbage. I think, was there a stat he's had more hurry-ups than any other QB in the league or something stupid like that, or in the top 5 of the hurry-ups in the league? It'll be fine. Once the O-line clicks, I think they're going to be fine. They just need to work that left side out, because Penning was better this week than he was the first week. Hurst regressed this week compared to the first week. We're seeing having to stick Foster Moreau out there to try and give him some extra protection. I think once that O-line clicks, we'll be all right. Defense.
I mean, I'd say the concern this week. But also on the O-line front, the concern was the fact that they were smashing right through the front of us. That was a little bit of a concern, because obviously
after
everyone's
Cesar Ruiz had such a good.
But hey, look, again, it's the second game of the season. The thing about the second game of the season, they no longer play in pre-season, and this is the same, I think, across the whole of the NFL. I think we've seen a number of people touch on it, haven't we, about O-line play in the NFL at the moment is at a really low level, and I think that's partly because they don't, prior to the season, they don't get the opportunity. I mean, literally, their job is to stop 270-pound guys smashing through them. If you're not used to that for a period of time, it takes you a while to get accustomed to it again. So I think, I'm with you. I think you touched on it, Dan. People are getting so bloody negative already. We haven't lost the game. We're going into the Packers. I think.
Don't listen to them.
Yeah. No, exactly.
I can't do with it. Like, what do you want? Like, appreciate that Drew Brees is one of the best quarterbacks that ever played the game.
Yeah.
Ever. Get used to the fact that you're not going to have a Drew Brees and just enjoy the wins. Like, enjoy the wins. It's so much fun to win.
Yeah.
What I will say is both games, we got better in the second half. Yeah. And I will take that all day long. All day long.
Yeah.
If you get worse in the second half, that's a nightmare because that means they figured you out and you're in problems. But if you get better in the second half, it means you acknowledge your problems, you try and fix them. It means you've got someone, behind center who's got some nous and slung it.
Yeah.
Some good slinging.
Yeah, exactly. Testament to the coaches. You've got good coaching staff. If they're and they, you don't have to be a member of the coaching staff to know you've got problems, but to be able then to make the adjustments at halftime to move. Yeah, I think it would be nice to see us start off really quickly and maybe get a lead, because obviously with that D, if you can go out and get a lead, there's a distinct possibility that nobody's coming back at you.
I'd love to see a team try and chase us down if we go up 14-0, because that secondary are just going to pick a QB who's panicking off.
That's
we'll put up a 40 burger on someone on the back of that because they'll be desperate to get CDs.
Ridiculous picks. We'll get it'll be great. It'll be great, and I'm looking forward to it. I enjoy defensive play. I know it's not the most, and some of my favorite players defensive, but it's not crowd pleasing stuff, and it's kind of nerdy, and it's not, But I like a bit of smash mouth. I like a bit of, I love someone comes around the side and knocks over a QB and takes a couple of people with him and stuff like that. I love that, and we're getting that, and I want more of it. So
I can't wait to see Brian Brzee take a QB's head off. When he comes through the middle,
looks like it's coming.
He's just
like it's coming.
I am. That is good. I'm gonna celebrate it like it's a touchdown, because that guy is gonna be one of the best defensive tackles in the league for 10, 15 years to come. He's gonna be amazing.
Well, you hope so. You hope so.
I stand by it. Barring injuries, barring injuries.
Always the injuries.
And Jordan Howden season. Jordan Howden season's coming. I've been going on about him all season.
Mark, you said you've listened to some of the pods, and obviously Dan never shuts up about Jordan Howden. It's his training campaign, but obviously for valid reasons, we talked to Ross Jackson, and Ross completely and utterly agrees with Dan. I think they had a Twitter interaction. Didn't you send over the stats for?
It was DM. Don't tell anyone about my DMs with Ross Jackson, because.
Ross Jackson is without doubt an ethereally nice person. Like one of those people you 100%. Feel better just listening to. You're like, there are some really decent people in the world, and you are one of them. So when ridiculous.
When we did the episode with Doug Tatum, who's the VP of digital media at the Saints, afterwards we just had a little chat with him, and I said to him, Ross sends his regards, because we've been telling Ross, like we was talking with Doug, because Ross has been a massive supporter of ours, and he said one of the things, like, they are so lucky that they've got decent people, good people involved in the media for New Orleans. And he was talking about Ross and John Hendricks and those guys, and we're really lucky as a team to have such good, decent human beings covering us, and that is, if you're going to sum up like people like Ross and John, like good, decent human beings, it's like the perfect way to sum them up.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's interesting that sorry, go on. That your man went to New England and came back to New Orleans. That says a lot about, one, the people that read, but two, also the setup for people that give him access, that he's, because New England's obviously a bigger market than we are. The Pats, my best friend, Serbian, comes over, also in the nightclub trade. So up at the right times for games, gets into it, does what I call the Man United. Who's winning? Oh, I'll follow them. And had a great time following the Pats for ages. You can imagine the market for a Pats correspondent or whatever, an inside man with the hot takes and whatever, is massive. And the fact that he came back to New Orleans and, you know, he's thrown his life on the line and said, and we're not obviously not, you know, it's behind a paywall, people, and I haven't paid for it yet. But the fact he's done that and he's felt confident about that says a lot about, one, the consumers, and
Mark,
his product.
You can share mine.
I don't think anyone at New Orleans Football listens to this podcast, so I don't think you have to worry about that.
No, I think we're quite safe.
I don't have enough time.
But you're right, Mark. You're absolutely right.
Yeah,
I mean the guy's come back to the city, and he's employing people left, right, and centre. You know, every single time there's a new thing going on there, they've got a new member of staff. They're you know,
it's like 7 staff he's employed now, 7 or 8 staff.
Yeah, and you know, and also I mean, you watch all their stuff now. Their production values are through the roof. The access they're getting, it's like a mini media company now, and that's obviously what Nick is trying to develop. And you know, for me, I say fair play to him. Yeah, crack on, mate.
To Mark's point, I not only have I not got time to read it, but I haven't got time for the amount of ads at the start of their podcast either.
Oh, really?
They've got so much sponsorship. They're like I say that in jest, like that's good for them because that's giving them the revenue to employ these people and put their content out. But it's like 4 minutes of ads. I was like, fuck, I can't afford this shit.
Yeah.
No ads on this podcast.
I listened to it, and I was saying to Dan that I think towards the middle of the pod, they've also got an ad from the Lotto now over there. When you're getting institutions like the Lotto advertising on your pod, hey, look, well done. You're doing a fantastic job. If companies like that are interested in advertising on your pod, so hey, look, hats off to Mr. Underhill.
And if there is a professional product attached to something you like, see, I thought about wearing a hat because I thought the light would bounce off my bald head.
Well, that's
your lighting's good. Your lighting's good. Mine was zinging up.
Do you know what? I did a panel thing at work this week on mental health, and I was in a room talking, but I didn't realise that the lights were just spotlights were just shining down. And when my camera went on, I just had these 2 white lights just here, like glowing incandescently. And I was just like, is there any tissues I can just wipe my brow to try and make this a bit more matte? But
no one thought it was a halo. So, you know.
It was 2 horns trying to come out.
Yeah. Anybody who knows Dan knows it wasn't a fucking halo. But right. I think the other thing is we've got Marcus May banned. We all knew that was going to happen. That's not big news. That touches on your Howden Bay friendship, Mr. Harper. Kendre Miller looks like he's going to be ready for the weekend, which is good news because obviously, even though fair play, good on Tony Jones, got through, got the 2 touchdowns. That the running game still looks a little bit like it needs some help. But I don't. Is there anything else?
Taste them.
Yeah. You know, well,
it's weird. I mean, as much as we all a little bit uncomfortable with him because we all don't want him.
I'm not uncomfortable with Taysom at all.
Oh, fine. You know, I think a lot of people are like, and I think he's kind of happy with how he's used. I mean, if you're a glory boy, then he's, you know, second only to maybe Jimmy Graham. He's you know, he's up for it in terms of I'm here and I'm going to put it home. And he's pretty unstoppable. He's I mean, it's not for nothing that whatever the old Jets coach who saw him coming out the show, you know the story of the guy saw him coming out. Who's the Jets coach who had the stick, who was our special teams coach for a while? Can't remember his name. Anyway, apparently the story goes, he saw Taysom Hill on the practice squad or whatever, coming out of the shower, and he's like, that man's a specimen. We need to use him more. And then that was the beginning of the Taysom Hill legend. I mean, you know, I don't know what. Yeah, okay. There's so much to read into that. But
Well, yeah, I think Mark swiftly moving on. Oh, look, he came out of the shower. That man's a specimen.
I got my pride shirt on as well.
So. Who's longest in the shower, Taysom?
Yeah, really, probably. But he's a monster. Yeah. I mean, he knocks people over, and I love it. I love it.
No, but so... you're absolutely right, Martin. Where I said I've got no issue with him, I think again, it's the thing about Saints, social media and everyone interacting. I think people begrudge the fact that, like, whether or not it was for the detriment of the team, they sort of tried to give him an opportunity to be a QB.
Yeah.
It did. He's not a QB. We all know that. But the bottom line is that he got. That's the thing. No, but I think he does now. I think he does. And part of the reason why I think he does, the chance, because he got the opportunity. Yeah. So now it's like, even and hey, look, we're talking on his behalf. We don't know, but he got the opportunity, and and I'm sort of talking him down, sort of saying he got the opportunity. Maybe he realizes he's not. But the bottom line is, Taysom Hill as a QB for the Saints has got a really good fucking record. We forget that.
It's true.
But the bottom line is, he's not a QB. And it seems like he sort of accepted that he's now not going to get that opportunity to be a QB. And now, actually, he's one of those guys you want on your side, because, whenever you hear anybody talk about him from the locker room, it's just admiration for the fact that he'll just do whatever is beneficial to the team, whether or not it's
punching it home. So he's getting, I don't know what bonuses you get for crossing the line, but I'm pretty sure you do get bonuses for crossing the line. Yeah. And you get your name in the paper, and you get your fantasy points, and people are going, I'm interested, the fantasy league I'm in at the moment, list him as a tight end, whereas last year he was running back, tight end, and QB. So he was a great person to have. But in terms of his job is the best job in the world. It's like, Taysom, we need you now. Nothing's working. Make something work. And often he makes something happen. He breaks the game open, and then Tony Jones Jr. finishes it off or whatever. But it was him that smashed through about 4 people, got 14 yards, 20 yards, or whatever we needed, because we were behind.
During the game, he had an average of 8.3 yards per carry. I mean, that's phenomenal. Phenomenal. Yeah. Absolutely ridiculous. Obviously,
he's a great pick for a best ball league, because you can just have him, and when he has his down week, you ain't got to worry about it. But when he goes off, you're like, thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think it was yesterday. I sort of say last night, because obviously we're over in the UK. But I think Pete Carmichael was talking after a Saints practice, and I think they touched on a little bit of Taysom and maybe why he wasn't used, like maybe why he didn't get 20 sort of touches a game. And he sort of touched on the fact that it was just like physically, the type of runner he is, that would just break him.
Yeah.
Because he's not a natural running back. He doesn't run like a natural running back. He just runs like, there's somebody in trouble and he's going to go and save them. That's how he's like almost like a superhero run. And if you're running like that for 20 snaps a game, you're going to get broken, because you're going to get hit at some point.
Can we put a cape on him?
He needs a cape.
Can we put a cape on him?
But I see what you mean.
That'll be my next tattoo, Dan.
He's expensive. His superhero name should be the Mormon Miracle. There we go. Mormon Miracle.
Nice. But I can see the way he runs is expensive for his physicality.
Yeah.
He leaves a lot on field. Then you look at like a proper running back. They just bounce and they go in and they're built to take the hits. And
Taysom's got no sort of lateral movement. It's just like, do I have to get there? This is how I'm going to get there.
Yeah. He's a downhill runner in that respect, isn't he? He's just
exactly.
A to B, I'm getting there.
But also, as soon as he's on, much like Jimmy Graham, 4 or 5 eyes on him, because they're like, oh, Taysom's on, something's happening here. And then, someone just waltzes in, somewhere else. It's a throw to Michael Thomas. And they're like, oh, well, what was he on the field for? And that's what, hopefully, I look forward to seeing Jimmy doing, is just messing people's heads up. Like, why is he on the field? What are they going to do with him?
Yeah.
They would definitely, there was a play I saw, they were definitely lining up for Taysom to throw to Carr on one of the plays on Monday night. There
Well,
was a play and the Panthers covered it, and they stopped it. But he was definitely Carl was in the end zone open, and he was going for him. That was definitely
there was an interview. That was an interview with Derek Carr, and I don't know whether or not he was trying to be crafty with his answer, but he was saying that that's never come up as an option. But he was saying that when he saw when he saw Taysom move, he was like, "Please throw it to me." And he was saying that he's spoken to Taysom and said this is going to happen. But he was saying that the coach is like saying, "No, it's not." But I'm with you, Dan. They're in the media saying, we'll do that again. We're never going to do that. But
we lined it up.
Yeah,
we lined it up so many times with Drew Brees when Drew was here. Yeah. Drew was going right out wide. You knew he wasn't getting the ball.
Yeah,
Derek, he might get the ball. So
you never know. Yeah,
and I'll love it. Yeah. I'll love it.
Right. I think that's just on. I think we've covered
the most we've ever talked about the Saints. I think.
Well done, Mark. And I was expecting not to talk about the Saints.
No. But it was all good. It was all good. Dan, I think. Do you want to take the first question, my friend?
Well, it's the question, is it? Is that what came first, Mark? Saints or the City?
Well, it is the City. I actually asked my mum, knowing that I was coming on, and so my mum owned a restaurant that was connected to a theatre. So it was like you used to do the pre-show, then you used to do interval drinks and the after show. And so we used to get a lot of tickets to go and see stuff. And then one day, I think I was 9. I think we agreed I was 9. My dad's like, you got to come and see this. It's the best jazz band in the world, bar none. You have to see him. You know how your parents give you no choice. This has to happen. Yeah. I went. It was
you've got to come and see him.
Yeah.
And
if you don't,
it's almost like you've got to come and see him, but you're coming regardless of what your thoughts are on it.
Yeah. And it was the Preservation Hall Jazz Orchestra, and he's like, "You've got to come and see." And one of the things he said to me, "You've got to come and see him because they're all 90 and they're all going to be dead next year. So now you've got to go." And this was before I knew that New Orleans has a never-ending supply of 90-year-old jazz musicians. So one goes, the next one goes. I didn't know who Preservation were and whatever, and then that sort of worked like 2 years in a row, and then of course that was our joke. Well, they're all going to be dead this year, so we better go. Oh, they're all still here, And so that was sort of mid-80s, and music is my thing. That's what I love the most. And they're such a good, they are the ambassadors of the city. They know how to put on a show to people who don't, they're amazing. There's an amazing film, A Tuba to Cuba, which is where they go to Cuba. And although they seem to be a bit younger now than I remember, I wonder if that's like me and policemen, they're a lot younger than they, I don't know if it's because I'm getting older. But the Preservation band seem to be younger than I remember, because when I remember them, they really were old. But so so it was that.
And now you look at them and think, I could have went to primary school with them.
Yeah. honestly,
cheeky fucker.
Yeah.
Look at him,
says the man sitting here. Look,
Santa beard. Santa, Saint Santa over there. It's a new handle for you, Saint Santa, I think.
Yeah. Sorry, you were saying, Mark. Sorry, I was.
Yeah,
it's one of that beer.
And obviously food, because my mother being a chef and my dad being the kindest way is a bon vivant, a man who loves his food. And he would tell me tall tales of going to America and stuff. Now, that sort of time was when Channel 4 was starting to play the NFL. And I was getting into rap music at an early age. And obviously anything American, when you're into rap music, anything American, is it American? I'm going to watch it. I'm going to look at it. And so I started getting into it, and I could have gone to the Jets because we have friends in New York, and so I'm like, well, what do I know? It could be the Jets. And then I was, I'll never forget it, and I could tell you the exact night that I became a Saints fan. And I always make the joke that I'm a bandwagon jumper, because it was the wild card round, first time I ever played preseason football. 1988, January the 3rd, I think. And I used to be, I don't know, this might be in the ether, but I used to have a ZX Spectrum computer game. I used to be a proper like into my computer games, and there was this game called Iridium where there was like 15 levels or stuff. It was like a platform spaceship game. I used to love it, but I used to watch a lot of NFL while I was doing it, and I even remember I was listening to, and it fills me with a little bit of shame, but I was listening to Private Dancer by Tina Turner, like, and on vinyl, flipping it over and over. And I'm watching this game and I'm like, I like this crowd. I like the crowds. I like the atmosphere of this game. And I've watched it over and over again. And a lot of what I remember from that night isn't even in the game. You know how you put memories into something? You know, in my memory, there were like eating in the stands and partying in the stands. And I've even put like in my head, I put the Benson Boogie after that, because it was the first time they had preseason football. It was the first time the Saints weren't a complete disaster, you know, and they got beaten, what was it, 40-10 or 43-10. They were mullered, but they were happy because they had turned it round. They were a team. They were in. It was postseason football, and I remember, and I think it's a very English thing. You're like, oh, it's an underdog. It's an underdog with a little style. And I was like, and then there's all sorts of other things like dragging me into New Orleans, like well, you know, 100 bits of music and food and everything, and I'm like, yeah, this is my team. This has to be my team, because the feeling that I was getting from watching that game, the fact that it was long lost. It was long. We had Bobby Hebert, you know, I can't remember. I was trying to think of the people who were playing, and I can't even remember. I watch it maybe once every 2 years just to like try and get that feeling again. And but we had lost it pretty early on. You know, there was a punt return for 70, 80 yards, and you're just like, I don't know, you just know you lost it. But the crowd were there, and the dome was rocking, and it was amazing. And I was just like, yeah, it's a team for me. So followed them for a while in the 90s, and then and the thing is, I always put a caveat, because there was no internet, there was no way of knowing, and like the other Marc was saying, you get scores a week later. You know, I was lucky enough, I grew up near some US Army bases, and so they would often have a lot of NFL stuff. But the thing is, even with Channel 4 or even with the Army bases, you didn't get really a choice of what was being played. So I'd watch a lot of football that I didn't really care about. And but yeah, just hung on through like the 90s. And then I was lucky enough to see them in the 90s. And then I missed the Hazlitt era almost totally. Like after Mora, and again, I feel a bit fugazi saying I was a fan then, because I used to get tapes from a friend of mine that would have like 5 minutes of Saints at the end. You know, in the roundup, in the match of the day, you know, I felt like a Wigan fan or whatever. You know, I'm never getting the time. But you know what I mean?
There are other teams that Marc could have said at that point. I'm just trying to be like the BBC.
No, but it's a really good analogy, though. Is it like when Wigan were in the Premier League, they were always like, unless they played one of the big boys, they were like, yeah, we'll show you that at the end.
Exactly, and that's how it felt. And it was weird because, and I was thinking about this again when you invited me on. So I'd go to New York quite regularly. And like even trying to buy Saints gear in New York in the 90s,
Tell me about
impossible.
Even now.
Yeah,
it's impossible really, even now.
Last December, we was in New York. We went over to the mall in Jersey where the big Nickelodeon indoor theme park is. And I went to the lids there, and I literally bought every single Saints item they had. It was about 5 items. I was like, I'll have one of each of these. That's all you've got. And that was it. I was like, I'll just take it. Give it to me.
Even the Pelicans, you know, #1 draft pick, Zion Williamson, okay, you know, still has to prove himself to be worth the hype. But like you go to like you say lids, because they do a lot of jerseys or whatever. You go to a place and they don't have it, and you're like, he was the #1 draft pick. You should at least, you know, whatever. So I had my one Brooks jersey that I hung on to. I can't. And funny enough, JD Sports, like to me now, it's like I don't even go in there because it's like you know, it's Reebok
the most
Classic,
miserable cashiers in the world as well. People in the tills in JD Sports are people. I swear,
100%,
JD
100%.
Sports part of the interview is, "Can you be a miserable fucker?" They go, "Absolutely, you got a job. Just do it to our customers because that is their business model."
And I could be wrong. And again, could be me like reinventing it. But I believe there was only one JD Sports. It was on Oxford Street, and I bought an Aaron Brooks jersey there in the 90s. And I don't know how it happened, but it was there, you know, and I bought it and I hung on to it for dear bloody life. And then all through my life, weirdly, one thing about people from New Orleans, like, so other Americans refuse to believe you're a Saints fan. They're like, "No, you're not. You know. And I've had people come up to me, why are you wearing that? You're not a Saints fan and whatever. But people from New Orleans, they're like, even if they don't quite believe, because even when I was going over there and you tell them, there's still that like, no, like you say, once you were in the stadium and they're like, "No, you're not Saints fans." Love, it's 300 quid a ticket. I'm a bloody fan, you know. I'm not a tourist who just walked in.
Yeah.
But it's like I you know, them denying, but I've met probably 4 or 5 people in my head from New Orleans over my life before I had a relationship with the city, who would keep me informed, but also just like keep me in touch. I had one friend who's actually a mad Scotsman who I've kind of lost touch with, called Simon, and he used to live in New Orleans, still very Scottish, and he used to but I remember him saying, everybody's taping over their Brooks, the nameplate on the back of your jersey, because you know, because he fell out of favor, and he's like, so you know, you need to tape it over. I'm like, I'm in England, who cares? Do you know what I mean? This is my one shirt. I'm not doing. I had one other, like a 60, it was an 87 shirt for the 20th anniversary, and those were my 2 shirts which I hang on to. Now I got a cupboard load of them. I don't even know why I buy them. I bought a New Orleans Voodoo, the arena football shirt. It arrived today. I don't know why. It's a sickness.
Where'd you get that? I've been looking for one of them.
Yeah, I was lucky. I just like, you know, eBay and whatever. It's weird.
I love the fact.
Sometimes you find, sometimes you don't.
Mark, can I just interject for a sec? I love the fact that you're on and you're just saying about these purchases you got, because I know it's gonna.
Do you want to see it?
Got a fucking, Dan's got a screw up his ass. Yeah. Let's have a look. Dan.
Because like you're the only people who are going to give a shit about it, basically. It's like...
I've been looking for one. I've also been looking for a Baby Cakes jersey as well. I can't get one of them either. Look at that.
So the Holy Grail.
Well done, mate. Appreciate
the Holy Grail is New Orleans Brass, because they had an ice hockey team called New Orleans. I didn't know anything about it. This is totally me sort of going back, and but how ridiculous is that? They had an ice hockey team, and I would love, but those are rocking horse shit.
Dan would love one of them, because Dan doesn't mind a bit of ice hockey, do you, mate? You're a fan of the Rangers, and also you go and take your son sometimes, don't you, to the local team?
Yeah.
I thought it was going to go the other way.
We got a team near me.
You didn't mind the Brass, and I was like, wow. Well, very UK.
You're happily married, Dan, aren't you?
I am happily married. I haven't always been married, but
and I apologise for making
lovely wife.
Joke, I just couldn't help it.
I may have sat outside a Brass house in the car waiting for my mates to come out, but
and swiftly moving on.
Really swiftly moving on. So anyway, that was it. It's definitely the city. So like I love the Pelicans. I like, you know, before that, whatever they were called before that, Hornets, and then before that, obviously. But it's always been the city, really. And the test is if the Saints move by. And the point where the Saints were going to move, I was really steeling myself for, okay, then bye, you know, and see you later. Because again, it's like, we all love Mr. Benson, and there was there's some great stories about the court case. One of my favorite stories is they were testing his sanity, and they said he's got to be mad. He eats ice cream and red wine. That's all he lives on. And the judge, and I don't know again, but the judge, only in New Orleans, judge is like, surely that shows that he's sane, because who wouldn't want to do it? He's a millionaire. He's lived his whole life. He's an old man. Why would you not want to drink red wine and ice cream for the rest of your days? I mean,
that's like Warren Buffett.
But obviously,
eats ice cream and Dr. Pepper. That's it. And he's the richest, one of the richest men in the world.
Exactly. But obviously, Mark, you were talking with the Bensons. Obviously, there was that period of time, obviously, especially sort of around Katrina, where there was like heavy talk, and whether or not he got convinced out of doing it, you know, it's all a little bit of a jumble, isn't it?
Look,
we're not.
We all look at the Raiders and Al Davis and who was it who left Baltimore in the middle of the night, and you know, it's something that as English people is very difficult for us to comprehend. It doesn't belong to the town it belongs to a guy, a bloke. And it happened with the Hornets, you know, and Jazz and whatever. It belongs to someone, and if he wants to sell it, he can. And
you think about in the UK what happened with Wimbledon when they moved to Milton
Keynes.
The only team that's ever really done it, and it's still now.
Yeah,
it's a small team.
Still resonates now.
Team.
Yeah, still resonates.
Is looked at with disdain.
They're a small team. There's no comparison in the size of the teams, as you're saying, Dan.
Yeah,
they were. I mean, obviously they had success in the 80s, but by the time they were moving, they were sort of they were down 3 divisions and stuff. But the animosity, the hatred that was developed from that's only like the one occasion that I can think of in this country that's happened.
What they do with NFL teams, it's like taking West Ham and moving them to Plymouth. You know what I mean? It's like it doesn't make any sense, but they do it. They keep doing it.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure that if I don't know, but I'm sure like Ravens v Colts, there's some people there that are like, I hope they muller them. You know, I don't know for sure, but how could you not? You know, and just stuff like that.
Browns versus the Ravens.
Yeah. Well, so where did the Colts leave? I can't remember. Anyway, but
Colts were Baltimore, and then they went to Indianapolis, and then they got.
So it was Colts. Yeah. So
then the Browns moved to Baltimore, and then the Browns got to keep their history. I think as part of the deal.
Yeah,
so
it's just because literally what you're talking about there is literally. We've talked about Wimbledon, but that's like a Premier League, as you said, Dan, with West Ham going to Plymouth or Chelsea moving to, I don't know, Ipswich.
Kings Lynn.
I mean,
Kings Lynn.
Even West Ham moving to the Olympic. Even West Ham moving to the Olympic Stadium. Like I go to where West Ham's old ground is based quite a lot, and you're like, you have no real. It's not really. I don't know. You know, and the Olympic Stadium is. I don't know if it's great, but it's better than what they had in terms of numbers of people, and I think they've made a good job of it. So anyway, back to NFL because you know.
Yes.
But on that point though, it's like when Tottenham were threatening to move to Olympic Stadium, that they was very much similar to what NFL teams do. They bullied the council and said, "If we leave, what are you going to have here?" Because you know Tottenham isn't a particularly affluent area in London.
No.
Take the football team away, and you're going to leave a massive hole in that community.
Yeah,
and that's what NFL owners do. So Daniel Levy learned that from NFL owners, like just put the pressure on the community and say you need to pay us to stay here.
Yeah,
that's exactly what the NFL does with these stadiums.
Slightly different for New Orleans because, I mean, America wrote them off after Katrina. America wrote the town off and
wrote the whole city off.
Yeah, and even now, like population and whatever, you know, there is a significant difference. And so if you owned a sports franchise, you could be forgiven. I think what you have to do is divorce yourself and go, the guy that owns this team doesn't necessarily love this team. And towards the end, it could have been older. He could have got more romantically involved, you know, more attached.
Yeah.
But so I'm going to flick over because one of the things that I know you have a bugbear, and I agree, is when the Saints came over last time, how little they did for the fans. And what I wanted to talk about is when they played the Chargers, And I don't know if it was because it was a home game for the Saints, but when the Chargers came over to the UK, there was so much more. There was a tailgate. They had something going on at the O2. Dr. John. They brought over Dr. John. You know, they brought over Trombone Shorty. Yeah. Oh no, my God. And like they brought over. So the guy that makes most of the Mardi Gras floats, Blake Kern, he flew over a few Mardi Gras floats. And the reason it reminds me is I was looking through some pictures and I took because I don't know if it wasn't before cell phones, but for some reason it feels like it was before selfies. But I took some sneaky pictures of Tom Benson because he was walking around the tailgate outside Wembley, you know, with Rita and you know, a phalanx of bodyguards and whatever and heavies and not in a nasty way. Sorry, that sounds wrong. Like a lot of execs, to be honest, rather than heavies. A lot of people in suits and whatever. But and I remember even then I was still like, you know, because she does look a bit like Cruella de Vil, and he, you know, and I was a bit like, oh, I'm still not, you know, do we boo you? Because I remember we used to boo the owner of our football club quite a lot. So, you know, we still weren't cool with him. But it was interesting that, and I again, I'm 100% with you. The little that they did, and in fact, anything that was done by us as fans. You know, people who did podcasts. But that Chargers game, it was amazing. They put on loads, you know. Like I said, they flew over Dr. John. They flew over Blake Kern and a couple of Mardi Gras Indians, and you know, they really put a lot into it. And I don't remember much from Miami, and I don't know if that was because Miami were the home team or not.
They did a thing in like
maybe
Oxford Circus. That was about it, I think. I think that's about it.
Yeah. But you know, like you say, we are a small market team who has more character than most. We're a character, you know. We're a character team.
Yeah,
we have more character, I feel, than most other NFL franchises, because of the city, basically. You know, because
without a doubt.
So,
and it's the association between the team and the city. We've touched on this many times, Mark, as I'm sure you know. There I don't think there are many other. And that sounds almost like fraudulent for me to say that, because obviously if you're a Jets fan, you're a fucking Jets fan. It doesn't matter.
For sure.
But the way that the city reflects the team and the team reflects the city, I think that's different. In New York, that's not the case.
But also, can you walk to the Jets? Can you walk to MetLife? It's not
no,
and
that's
no. You got to get a bus.
Yeah.
Got to get a bus.
And look, and also that's
and it's not even in New York.
On that point, But touching on that point, Mark, it's probably a good time to sort of flip it on to the fact that when was the first time that you went to the Dome? Because we've talked about it, both myself and Dan, and with every member who's come on who's been to the city. What it is like when you go.
Never been.
Go to the. You've never been to the Dome.
Never been in the Dome.
But you've been to the city, haven't you?
Countless times.
Can I use this as a segue? Can I use this as
of course you can.
Segue to experiment with some technology.
Go on. Then. Obviously, I've been to the building and I've been in the building several times. I've been to Essence Fest. I've never been to a live Saints game.
Oh, right, okay. Dan, how's your technology going?
Go on.
It's getting there. Hang on. So, if you've never been in the Dome, can you tell us about being
Mr. Hack
outside the Dome?
Yeah,
and I'm just going to try.
Oh, look at that technology, Dan.
There we go, technology. I stole this from your Instagram. I'm not going to lie.
No, I knew you would.
Explain to us this. Explain to us this, because this is beautiful.
For me, the Dome. So, I don't want to digress, but I was a massive Madness fan from a very young age, and then Madness became this sort of Finchley Park. To explain for people that don't know,
almost like a tribute band to themselves.
Exactly, they became a caricature of themselves, and I never got the chance to see them when they were Madness, when they were a small ska band, because I was way too young. I mean, it just wasn't going to happen. And then I remember they put out an album. And they said, if you, and it was in the Hackney Empire, which again, to explain, is a small theatre, maybe 250 seater theatre, for those that don't know. And they said, we're giving out tickets. If you sit through our new album, we'll play a greatest hits show. And so I was like, now is my time to go. So I went and I saw it, and I pretty much blubbed through the whole thing. I was just like, I was so emotional. And for me, I will go to the Dome, and it was going to be this, it was coming up. I was going to go when you were all going to go. But it's not going to happen. And when I do, I'm not sure I'll be able to handle it. And there are a couple other things I was going to say, because I have young kids. I don't want them not to come with me. I also, and this might sound a bit cold, I don't want to waste money on taking my kid. So my older kid, he's been to games, he understands. But my younger kid, he's 4. I don't want him watching an iPad when I'm in the Dome.
Yeah.
Not just because it's cost me a load to put him in there, but I want it to mean a lot to him.
Appreciate it.
Exactly.
To appreciate the moment. Yeah.
So you always want like, you want him to catch the bug as well. Be old enough.
Exactly. Yeah.
Get it with you and feed off of you.
So as he knows, he sees the fleur-de-lis around the house, or whatever, and he knows Staddy's team. It's, so he knows, but it's an ask to ask a 4-year-old to sit still for,
Yeah.
And I'm going to probably go to I'll probably go to one of the games in London this time. I'll pick up some tickets. I tend to do it all the time. I just sort of roll up. There are people that got extras, and I'll go with him, and I won't mind if he doesn't care and he wants to leave or whatever. But I remember even from days of a football thing, it's like, someone who wants to be here could be in that seat, and especially in the Dome where there's so much pressure for tickets. And I know what you say, that sometimes if they're not playing very well, and that wouldn't bother me in the slightest, I would still go. But that's my dirty little confession is, one, I always tend to go to New Orleans out of season. And 2, it's like that final thing for me. So I've seen them other places, but it's just that thing. And like I said, I've been to the Dome, and even just going to the Dome to see a concert or something, you're still like, ooh, I can't wait for that one day when it's going to happen. But nah.
I'm going to say it's going to. I'm going to say it's going to happen in January 2024 for the NFC Championship game. Just putting it out there. I'll take you. Me and Mike will take you. We'll go.
That was the thing. So I have been, and basically one of the reasons, my 2 or 3 big things is, so I got married in New Orleans. I had my 40th in New Orleans, and I went to the Super Bowl. I watched our Super Bowl, the Saints Super Bowl in New Orleans.
In the city, yeah.
In the city, because so it was another one when it's like that 3 a.m. sort of thing. It's like, I could go to the game in Miami. I could afford it. Couldn't afford to take my I was sort of married at the time. Well, I'm still married, but you know what I mean? I was just married, no kids.
Yeah.
I probably can't afford to take my wife. I'm not 100% sure. She's up for all sorts. So she would, make the best of it. Like Marc said, who doesn't want to go to Miami? So, but I was like, if we lose, and I've had to sleep in an airport to get over there, and I'm going to sit on my own on some bloody American Airlines plane, just miserable, because I've returned from a Champions League, 2 Champions League finals, empty-handed in foreign climes, and it's not fun. And I wouldn't put it in the way. But the other thing was, at the time I was on the radio, and I had always said, you know what, if they get into I'm going to go, I'm going to find a bar, I'm going to sit there, I'm going to watch it in a bar. Because if we lose, I'm going to slip out into the street in New Orleans. And because going right back to that night in 1988, I know that the city will celebrate that we got that far. Maybe not the fans in in Miami at the time going home, but the city's going to go off. And
but you're right. They would be devastated, as any fan would be. But yet again, they would just do the stuff that they know. We just need to enjoy the moment. We need to enjoy the fact that we've been there, the occasion, and myself and Dan. Yeah, myself and Dan have had this conversation privately numerous times, and I think we've actually sort of discussed it on the pod as well. I would love if the Saints got to the Super Bowl this year, next year, I would dearly, dearly love to go. But we already know, especially coming from the UK, that a ticket at the very least is going to probably cost you 10 grand. And, as much as I think, could I afford it? Possibly I could. I've got a wife who's not a New Orleans Saints fan who will say, that ain't happening. Because it's not only the ticket that's going to cost you 10 grand, the hotel, the flight, it's good. So if it were me, if I couldn't find a deal to get to a Super Bowl, the first thing, and I've always said it, Dan, the first thing I would do is I would go to the city to watch it.
I said it to Nick tonight before we recorded. I said to her, I said, if it happens, I'm going, and I'll just have to work it out. Like if we get Super Bowl this year, however likely or unlikely, I said I'm going to New Orleans. I'm going to watch it there.
Well, So let me tell you about it.
Yes, that's what we want.
Yeah, that's what I'm here for. I'm guessing. So Hartley splits the post. It wasn't that late, but it was 2 a.m. something like that. And I'm straight on the phone, and my wife's asleep, nudging her. I had one of those, like we were young. We had a lovely flat, big sofa, massive TV. Now we've got kids, and But I was like, nothing. I'm like, we got to go. And she's like, what? Yeah, sure. She's up for it. And I'm like, let's go, and let's go for a week, and we'll watch the game, and whatever happens. And we've been there. It's a fun time. It's going to be great. So she was, of course, up for it. She loves New Orleans for there's so much to love about the place. And so we went over, and like Blake Kern, I had met him in the O2 watching Dr. John, and I had the stones to like go, so what's happening? What's happening in the city? He never got back to me, but a number of people did get back to me. So I met loads of people, and you know what New Orleans people like? I am Mr. Mardi Gras, but I'm going to chat to you because I'm sitting on the table somewhere. I don't know. It wasn't Burger King. It was somewhere in the O2 Arena. And me and him chatted, and I think his son chatted, and they gave me his card and whatever. So I'm like, yeah, I'm coming. What's happening? Where can I watch it? Not really realizing that. And you've been to Mardi Gras, and now I've never been to Mardi Gras, but I've been to the weeks before, and that again is a tip I would always say. If you can't make Mardi Gras, there are 2 weeks before Mardi Gras where there are parades and maybe
full on.
It might be
some of the best parades. But also some of the best parades are sort of a week or two before the actual weekend.
Absolutely. And
Chewbacca's and all that.
That was
exactly.
Ridiculous, and also really the soul of New Orleans. It's like the slightly changed soul of New Orleans. It's not Rex, Commerce, or whatever they want. It's not the old establishment. It's the new middle class hippies, weirdos, and people who were not so much allowed in the classic
into the old framework.
Exactly.
So the world has evolved, and so have parades and floats. They've evolved
exactly, and you really get that in the couple of weeks before. So we were anyway. So it was a couple of weeks before Mardi Gras. So we went, and there were a couple of things to see. And then in the end, we and this is maybe something you didn't get on social media because I'm so bad at it, but I actually have a video of Tracy Porter's return. So we ended up in the House of Blues, right? Because they serve Guinness. And that was basically my whole thing. It's like,
can I cuddle you through the screen?
Honestly, because one of my restaurant recommendations is controversial, but again, they have Guinness on draft, so I don't care what you say.
Yeah.
So we went there. We were just wandering around out in the street, and honestly, from early morning, people were just out, and people who didn't really, and it's weird because there are people from New Orleans who aren't Saints fans, but that day obviously they were, and so and then the following days after, you know, I'll get to. But so everyone was out from early, wandering around, and we hadn't really decided where we were going to watch it. And a friend of mine called me from the Mad Scotsman. He's like, we're at whatever the casino was called before it was called Harrah's, the big, you know, casino.
Yeah.
And he's like, we're there, we've got a table, you should come down. And I was a bit like, but so my wife doesn't drink, she doesn't mind me drinking, but if I want to get slaughtered, I don't want to, you know, I don't want to leave her out. So, you know, so I tend not to go mad, and going with him would be mad. So we went to and the thing is, we had I made merch. We had Who Dat Nation London, like you know, like biker patches on the back of our t-shirts.
Oh yeah,
I saw that on your Instagram.
Yeah, and people were like properly. Yeah, they were coming up, and they wanted to know, and they were chatting. And again, there's still that slight disbelief that you haven't just sort of decided to be a Saints fan because you happen to be in New Orleans. There was still that slight, really? Are you really there? And even days afterwards, like I have an old, it's not Averex, I can't remember who it is, but I have, again, JD Sports, Oxford Street. I bought this Saints Letterman jacket that I had pretty much vacuum packed and kept on ice. And I said, you know what, I'm going to wear this. And people were stopping me like, I haven't seen that jacket in 20 years. I used to have that jacket. I know, obviously, you know, I'm Johnny Big Balls now. I'm loving it, you know. So we ended up in the House of Blues, which was great because it was a cinema screen and it was packed full of people. And because I didn't think we'd win. I got to be honest, I didn't think we'd win. I just maybe I didn't want to believe that we were going to win. You know,
I think that's more the point.
Yeah, no, I see what you mean, because I was really on the. Yeah, I really started getting into the NFL sort of around 2006, like ramping up, and to me, Peyton Manning was unbeatable. So it was like, to me, it's like,
exactly.
well, yeah, I'm just going to enjoy it. Enjoy it. I've been crowing all season that we were going to make the Super Bowl. When got there, I was like, oh, we're the underdogs. I'm just going to enjoy the game and see what happens. But I thought we'd win, but not properly thought we'd win. You know what I mean? It's
I mean, funny enough, as the game started to play, I was like, oh, we could win this, you know. And then I'll send you the link to the YouTube thing. It's funny because I think only a few thousand people have ever seen it, but 2 TV companies have bought it off me. Oh no, that's not strictly true. So it's actually what they bought off me is a drunk Saints fan on top of an SUV falling off it in the aftermath of the thing. Sorry. That's not strictly true. So, but I do have a YouTube video of when Tracy Porter returned it, and basically it's like it looks like an earthquake. It looks like I'm you know, in a riot. There's beer everywhere. Everybody's going mental because that was it. We knew that was it. Done. Dusted.
And game over.
Yeah,
I remember my daughter was a year old, maybe 18 months old.
Yeah,
I remember my wife said to me, "Whatever you do when you're watching it, do not make a noise to wake her up."
Yeah,
and I remember silently screaming in my lounge, just like,
it was ridiculous.
Going nuts.
It was ridiculous, and like, but you know, when you don't have I don't know how to express so much joy. I'm so happy. I just don't know what to do with myself. You know, you scream till you're hoarse and whatever. But what was really nice is, you know, it meant a lot to me. But like I say, I'll hold my hands up. You know, like I said, I missed 10 years of being a Saints fan just because you couldn't watch it, you know, and whatever. But there were people who were there from day one, like old men, and not even old men, but just the sons and daughters of old men who have basically grown up with this.
Pigs might fly and all stuff like that. Yeah,
it's a burden. You know, even again, like without going back to it, that Welcome to Wrexham TV program. Shit team. Why would you follow that? You follow it because your dad follows it. You follow it because you're from that city. You know, absolutely. And what the beautiful thing is the woman saying, you know, like, I don't see Chelsea shirts anymore in the park. I don't see Man United shirts. I see Wrexham shirts. But it's handed down to you. So you're from New Orleans, you're from Louisiana. unless you're a fucking Cowboys fan, wankers.
Or Lil Wayne.
Or Lil Wayne. Oh, yeah, that's an odd one.
Fuck him for his football allegiances. I love his music, but fuck him for his football allegiances.
Well,
and the fact he mugs us off all the time. He comes out and goes, no one supported the Saints. It's like, what are you talking about this? I know people.
But people will say, even the TV broadcasts would sort of push the Cowboys into Louisiana.
Yeah.
And that's why there's so many Louisiana Cowboy fans. And then they would just support LSU because LSU would win, and the Saints weren't. So I'm not going to say you can understand it, but you can understand it. Anyway, so honestly, there were so many tears after Tracy Porter. There was so much emotion, just people honestly sobbing. And then there was this guy, I'll never forget, I've got a picture of it somewhere. He had a pig with wings and he was just carrying it around like pigs are flying.
Yes.
It was amazing. And so then everybody spills out onto the streets and it just went off. And it was and people, and I have an issue because everybody's a bit down on Bourbon Street, and rightly so. But there were no tourists there. It was all people from the city and the state.
Because it was like, where's central that we can congregate, that we know that everyone will congregate?
Yeah,
that's the mentality.
What I was going to say is every street was like Bourbon Street. Every street, Frenchman, Royal, every street.
With if England won the Football World Cup.
Yeah, there you go.
Everybody would congregate on Trafalgar Square.
Soho,
I wouldn't go to Trafalgar Square in a day of years. You know what I mean? But that's where. So you're right. Suddenly, locals just think, "Where can I be?"
You just want to go where people are going to be that you can enjoy it with. That's the thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
So everybody, but the thing was, there wasn't enough room. There were so many people there that everywhere was and so the YouTube video that, like I said, 2 US broadcasting companies bought off me. We were wandering around, people bibbing their horns. It was a lot like somewhere like Stockwell when Portugal win you go down there and all the Portuguese having their thing and whatever.
Yeah.
And
same with me where I used to live up in Holes, and they'd be out there with their Brazilian Portuguese flags. That's where that's where they live. Absolutely.
Loads of SUVs with flags and people bibbing. There's a guy on top of an SUV. He's got that bendy leg drunk going on, and I'm saying to my wife, he's going to fall off there, and he's slapping people's hands and people cheering him. And he just folded up and fell off. And when people are drunk and they're not putting out their hands to stop them, he just crumpled. And like I said, it's on YouTube. And
so you recorded it.
Oh yeah, I did. I knew it was going to go. Wow. I said,
"He's going down. He's going down."
And then I sort of put the phone down because I felt a bit bad. And my wife checked him out, and obviously, Dutch courage and whatever, he was fine. He hit a ball on. He really hurt himself. So tomorrow he was hurting, but the Saints won the Super Bowl.
Yeah, and also tomorrow I'm going to search that clip up on YouTube.
Yeah, that's also true. So he.
Do you have any idea what it's called?
It's called Who Fell. Like Who Dat. If you go on YouTube and you look up Who Fell, you'll find it.
There you go.
So he was over, and so we were just wandering around. It was amazing. And then the next day, we went on a tour of the city, Cajun Encounters tour of the city. And the bloke who was driving the bus, you could tell he wasn't sober. You could tell.
Yeah.
And he was just singing. And again, he was like, "Really? You came all this way to watch the Saints?" I'm like, "Why wouldn't you?" And the secret was people from Miami were desperate to come back to New Orleans because there's no open carry in Miami, or at least that's what they said. And they're like, it's just for the city of Miami. It's just a sports event. I need to go back to where people understand what it means.
But we had that, Mark, with Max Darfdate, didn't we? Who went to the Super Bowl, and he said next day they just drove. They just they had to come back to the city.
But what was weird is 2-3 in the morning, people were coming back from Miami and they were arriving back. They'd obviously got a flight, had decided whatever the result, they were coming straight back to New Orleans, and they were beginning to appear 2-3 in the morning. And then the party, not that there ever needs to be an excuse to ramp it up, but it just got more. Like people were arriving from Miami 2-3 in the morning, and they were telling people, and it was weirdly enough, it was cold. It was the first time they'd gone down to 0. I don't think it was that particular night, but it was beginning to happen. And they all blamed us, obviously, brought you shit weather. But the next few days, there was the frost, which was like totally unheard of, but it was cold, but no one gave a shit. And nobody was cooking on the street, and everyone was drunk. But everyone had this amazing bonhomie. I mean, I didn't, people buying me drinks and cigars and, dragging me to this place, to that place. And to the point where you're like, I don't mean to be rude, but I'm not from here. So I just want to be in the middle of it. I don't want to go to a bar. I want to be in the mess. I want to just drink it
experience it in its fullest. Most purest feeling.
It was incredible. Just incredible.
I can safely say, Mark, you as we were saying earlier about myself and Dan having offline chats about what would we do if it ever happened. You've sort of kicked me towards actually just going to the city. Forget the game. Forget it. It's like, apart from, I mean, God, it would be remarkable to be in a stadium with your team when they won the Super Bowl.
I know, and but
it would be. It just feels even more remarkable to be in that city when they win a Super Bowl.
It takes the sting out of it.
Yeah.
But the other thing,
said it to Nick. So
the other thing was the kicker. Was they had what they ended up calling Lombardi Gras. So obviously it's Mardi Gras season, and again the second reason you brought me on here, they are up for a parade any minute. So it was really easy just to stick Saints players on Mardi Gras floats and run them through. Apparently it was the biggest amount of people in New Orleans ever or something. I don't know. And again, they were all locals because it was people from all around. And I spent about half of it on canal upper lampposts, like just watching it all go by. But again,
that sounds like a UK man to me. Upper lamppost.
Yeah, exactly. Upper lamppost, hanging off, saying to Mark, "I'll be down in a minute. I'll be down in a minute." And not even And I've got some crappy sort of wobbly footage of it, but again, it was just an amazing situation. By the time they got to Canal, you could see the players were really lagging because like the guy was telling you about, where they start and the floats just sit there for a bit and whatever, and you're just drinking and drinking. And I remember like Morten Hansen and Shockey and not Morten Hansen, what's the punter, lovely punter guy, what's he called?
Roman Harper.
The punter.
Punter. Thomas Morstead.
There you go, Thomas Morstead. Yeah.
Our friend, hopefully future friend. Wink, wink.
Well, why not? What? Apparently the nicest bloke in the world. But they
had some conversations.
Hey, no. We've interviewed Ross Jackson. Calm down.
Yeah.
Pinnacle. It's down the mountain now.
To be fair, I always think that players, you got to catch them. I mean, he's never struck me like this, but even players I really like, they're so media trained. You're just like, God, I'd rather not talk to you. I'd rather actually just never talk. I hear you speak than hear you repeat cliches and what you've been told by the press office. And obviously we're going to work on that in training, and and it's so refreshing to hear people talk differently, and they never really do until they're out of contract and they're retired and stuff.
They're almost allowed to, aren't they?
We're hoping. We reached out to Thomas and he came back and said let's do it, so we're hoping we're going to have him on. We'll
I've
see.
never heard a bad word again about him.
And he did he went on the old UK Saints podcast in the past. Obviously it's a synergy there because his mum's from the UK, so makes sense. So hopefully I'd love to have a chat with him. It'd be great.
Well, he's still playing. Go on.
Yeah. No, I was going to say playing at a high level as well. But you were obviously you're touching on being in the city when we won the Super Bowl. I think originally, sort of 20 minutes ago, Dan put a picture up of you outside the Dome. And I think some other occasion happened in the city of New Orleans, didn't it?
A small occasion.
Can you explain how that came about?
Well, interestingly enough, it was a kind of a default situation where so my wife is Hindu and I am Jewish, but so we had a massive Hindu wedding, and then it's traditional to have a second wedding because unless you are, I think, Church of England, your wedding is not recognized as a wedding in this country.
Yeah.
So you have to have a reception, registration. So a lot of, if you're not Church of England, I think probably Catholics, but if you're Hindu or Jewish or whatever, you have to have someone with a little bit of paper doing it. But you can do that in other countries. But our plan was we were going to have a wedding in Tower Bridge. Not a lot of people know. So for those that don't know,
it is the most,
yeah. So it's the most famous bridge. It's what people think is London Bridge, but it's the one with the towers.
Yeah.
And there are walkways that join the towers. And we had rented these out for our wedding. And but we had rented them out before the 2012 Olympics decided to hang the rings off the Tower Bridge. And so they basically, and forgive my language, they tried to fuck us off because they then obviously could rent that out for 50 times what we were paying them for one of those weekends. And the problem is, I'm in the industry, right? They're saying, you have to pay for cloakroom. I'm like, fine, it's summer, not many people are gonna. No, you have to pay per guest. So if you've got 200 guests, you got to pay 200 cloakroom fee. I'm like, what? And then they're like, it's a certain amount. Say for our US listeners, $3. It was $2.50. I said, I run one of the most prestigious clubs in London, right? Where we charge a premium. It's a premium club. We don't charge that much for people coming to put their cloaks in the cloakroom, right? So you got the feeling that they were trying to get rid of us. And then they wouldn't let our caterers in because there was heightened security. And I'm just like, I see what this is happening. And my wife was really upset. And she said, did you mention that you wanted to get married in New Orleans? And when someone gives you a tiny bit of rope, and you're like,
a sliver of light.
A little sliver of light.
Yeah.
And I said, I'll give you a week to retract that statement, and then I'll start organizing it. And she was like, no,
that was
it's not happening.
That must have been a hell of a tug of war. She gives you a tiny bit honestly, it's like free.
So, and we went from a quite a large wedding to, I think we had 8 people. And so she was like, oh, that means I can spend more on my shoes and my dress and, and so it became that. And she left it entirely to me to organize. And so I have been a listener and I did it all from over here. I'm quite blind, to be honest. And I knew the city. I didn't actually know. Apparently, it's like the second most popular wedding destination in the USA. But
after Vegas.
I think after Vegas. But I didn't know that. But and you can see that if you step back and you think about it, of course. But I didn't know that, and obviously I didn't want that kind of wedding anyway. I didn't. It's like I was a bit like, I don't want a second line. As much as I want a second line, I want one when I'm dead. I want a second line for my funeral. I don't really want one for my wedding, and I don't want 8 people who are obviously not from the city walking through looking a little bit embarrassed. And as it turned out, it was much better. I'll just quickly explain that. There is a tailor called Susanna Hall in the city of London. She's an amazing tailor. And she made my suit, and I said, if I give you the lining, can you put it in? And she's like, yeah, of course, I've done it before. People like get football shirts stitched into the lining of their wedding suits. So I got this printed up by the University of East London. They've got a textiles course, so they have this textiles workshop or whatever. They printed it up for me. I got it from, I can't remember, a map I think
time's
somewhere.
picking you, Matt.
Time's picking you. Time's picking you.
But I had to buy it from, and I only buy a high res, so it wasn't very expensive, from a museum somewhere like in Connecticut or somewhere like that. I can't remember off the top of my head. But anyway, so, and I printed it up, and I remember wearing it. So what we did is we got married, and then the next day about 5 a.m. we got up to do some photos, because I was like, I want to do photos, because you go to a wedding, there weren't very many of us for a start, but we've all been to weddings where there's that hiatus between the wedding and the eating and the photos and that horse shit. And I'm like, this is not really what I want to do. I don't want photos. We were an amazing photographer, which we actually flew out with us. He's become a friend of ours, and he was like, well, happy days, I don't care, it's another couple of days in the city for me. So so we got up the next day. But I remember we were walking along along the Mississippi, so if you go south of the French Quarter, you get to the river, and there were a couple of drunks, for the bear could have been junkies, but and they were kind of unconscious, and I walked past, they were lying on the bench, and one of them went, "That's that river!" Like that. He was like pointing out, "That's that river!" I woke him up. I was comatose, and it was nice. It was a nice little touch. I'm into the touches. So
for anyone, I was going to say, for anyone who's just listening and not watching, we've got on screen the image of the lining of Marc's suit and his waistcoat, and it is the most beautiful map of New Orleans within the lining. Really is spectacular to look at.
That's what you have when you have a small wedding. You can spend money on these things. You don't have to buy chicken breasts for Auntie Vi and Uncle whatever. And I bought gator shoes. And
I saw them, very nice.
Yeah, weirdly, I bought them from Italy and they didn't fit. And then I went to Saks in New Orleans, and this guy, you know how it is. You meet someone, they get to know your story, and then they're invested. And he's like, "I'll get you, don't wear those ones you bought from Italy. I'll get you some local ones. I'll get them shipped here in time for your wedding." And of course he did, and it was amazing. So I've got these. I think they're still Italian, but he's like, yeah, let me.
And underneath is the "she's mine."
Oh yeah. There's a lot of touches like that.
Absolutely beautiful. It's stunning.
The place we got married is called the Marigny Opera House, and it is a decommissioned church. And again, never let the truth get in the way of a good story. But as far as I remember, the guy who bought it was a choir boy there, or was involved in the church, and his lifestyle choices led the church to condemn him as a person, not him personally, but and then when the church sort of got deconsecrated, he's like, "Fuck you, I'm going to buy it and I'm going to do what I want with this church." And he turned it into this amazing art space. Now that sounds all a bit fancy. At the time, there was a TV program called True Blood set in Louisiana, and the HBO came to him and said, "You see this abandoned church, we'll pay you a huge amount of money to keep it abandoned so we can film," I think the finale was going to be filmed there. And so he was happy days. I can fix the toilets, I can fix the roof, but I'll let the ivy still come through the stained glass windows and whatever. And it was still very much in the early days. It was the second time he'd had a wedding. He'd had one other wedding there, and I'd rung him completely out of the blue and said, "I want to have my wedding in the church." He was like, "Oh, I'm not sure about weddings." He said, we had a nice wedding, nice Cajun family, and it was all fine. And then they started roasting a hog in the gardens, and it all went off. And he said it was a lovely affair. But I said, "Look, I work in nightclubs. I understand local councils. We're all fine. If I told you 8 people are coming to this wedding, and we will come, and we'll do whatever you want to make it work." Now, I'd heard about this.
We'll be respectful. We'll do.
Exactly. But also, one of them's like my mum. She's 80 or whatever. What's she gonna do? And we had it completely.
She was going to roast the alligator in the backyard. That's what she was going to do. That's what
she could. She certainly would be inspired to. But so I'd heard about this place on WWOZ, which is like basically 90% of my listening, other than professionally, is WWOZ. It's like the burbling river in the background of my house. Like every Christmas it goes, it's the first thing that I do is I turn it on in the morning. Because the nice thing about listening to, and one of the reasons I used to get quite a lot of American listeners when I was on the radio
Marc, sorry, can I just say that's another one that I'm writing down.
Well, what I would always say to anyone who's going to New Orleans is OZ do what's called the live wire, which is every 15 minutes or half an hour, whatever, which runs through all the live venues and what's going on that day. And also, so we managed to catch some second lines and stuff because of you just listen to OZ and it's on the live wire and you can, just hang on to this thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I heard about
you're right. No, sorry, Marc, to interrupt, but you're absolutely right. Whenever I'm over in the city, the first thing that I always look on is their website because every live event is on there.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter whether it's starting at midday, 3 o'clock, 9:30, everything's over there. So that's a really good recommendation for people who are going to the city. You want to listen to some really good music.
Yeah,
check
or
that
just
website
be aware
of
events.
Yeah.
And the other thing was, and I was trying to find an old one. I used to get a calendar sent to me, and I think it went out in the pandemic, and then she tried to bring it back, and I'm not sure. It's a company called Tattooed Lady, and they do a Louisiana, New Orleans events calendar. And so sadly, I think I'm recommending something that doesn't exist. But my point is this. Anytime you go to New Orleans, with the exception of maybe the really, really hot, unpleasant months, there is something worth going to. So we've been to the Tomato Festival, the Po' Boy Festival. We've been to the Plaquemine Seafood Festival. Again, like I said, you go to Mardi Gras 2 weeks early. Rather, you don't have to go to Mardi Gras. We like one which we always seem to manage to go to, although I think it's slightly changed. Is Bayou Boogaloo, which is basically a Bayou St. John a festival. Southern Decadence. I mean, honestly, any time you go there, there is something to be done, to be seen. And if you can be bothered to travel out of the city 20 minutes, then there's a parish that is having her knees up, and some blonde woman called Karen, who is by no means Karen, will teach you how to twist crawfish properly, even though I'm massively allergic. But my wife is the terror of seafood. She, and they do soft shell crab. And like someone mentioned before, and although I will stick up for establishment restaurants all day long in New Orleans, there's nothing better than someone's half petrol can, oil drum can, and I'm making this on here, and someone doing soft shell crab, and or someone just doing a crawfish boil or whatever at some little stupid little post little league game festival, that's 20 minutes outside. I would love to go to Cajun Mardi Gras. I don't know if Cajun Mardi Gras is.
I've seen it on Treme. I've seen it on the Treme.
And I will actually quickly mention Hastings on the South Coast used to do a Cajun Mardi Gras every year.
Really?
As in Hastings, as in 20 minutes from Brighton, whatever. And they used to do it very much like it was very drunken, very messy, slightly weird. And I've got a picture somewhere, and I was going to send it to you, that they used to have Hastings twinned with New Orleans. There used to be a sign underneath the Hastings sign. I don't know if it was official or anything, but they put in the effort, and they have a lot of events, which I think the sign's gone now because a friend of mine's down there. But they every year they have a Mardi Gras, but it's more like the Cajun Mardi Gras.
I would have
chasing the chickens.
I would never have thought that Hastings would be twinned with New Orleans.
It was a mad one. It was a mad one, and
they weren't very good. I can assure you. Yeah.
So I've been twice, and both times it was fiercely cold, and the wind is coming off the sea, and so people are drinking to get through it. And so that totally feels like the spirit of Cajun Mardi Gras. If you what's his name? Anthony Bourdain did the prop and Cajun Mardi Gras, and he was like covered in mud, and he was just drinking to get through it.
Yeah.
And it was like, it was an ordeal, and it's very much like that. And a lot of them were wearing the proper, quite scary, weird.
It's the True Detective style.
Yeah.
That first season of True Detective.
Yeah, that's
who'd have thought we'd Brits would have so much in common with New Orleanians, just like we just drink to get through it.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of that, but again, and it's been mentioned in your amazing podcast, because there's so much things. I'm like, yeah, I'm nodding, like, yeah, that's 100%. Someone was saying, it's a very European city. It is. It's also a very Caribbean city.
Yes.
I get a real good Caribbean flavor from New Orleans.
They say it's the most organized Caribbean city. Caribbean city, which doesn't say a lot for the rest of the Caribbean or Caribbean for my American friends.
Yeah, but it's got that. It's got that. It's got that alcohol in its blood. Like we have, and
I've got into I would say arguments, very strong discussions with some people on Saints Twitter about, they go, oh, no one can drink like we can in New Orleans, and may I present to you our friend Alex, because he can. And Brits are like so well that, like, I'm sure we're probably one of the only tourists that rock up in New Orleans and we're just like, yeah, we're good, we can rock with the locals, we're fine with it. Whereas I can imagine some chick from Wisconsin coming down, having like one hurricane and being like on her ass and just like, oh my God, I can't deal with it.
Well, hurricanes are, to be fair, we had our wedding breakfast, or is it rehearsal dinner, on the Steamboat Natchez, right?
Yes.
And why not? So we're there,
yeah, exactly,
and we're chuffing along. I think it's like 2 or 3 nights before the wedding. And, I don't know what you're meant to do at a wedding rehearsal. We weren't going to rehearse. So we all just ate, and the food's all right. But the hurricanes, jeez. I had a few people with me who are seasoned drinkers, and it was hilarious. We were at a bar, and I think what was even funny was we were on a balcony, and my friend was going, oh, it's a bit choppy. It's got a bit choppy. And I'm like, we're not on the boat anymore, mate. We left the boat an hour ago. And he was like, oh, hurricane, Jesus. They were killing me. He was like, oh, it's getting a bit choppy. Like, he thought he was still on the Mississippi. No, they were deadly. Those hurricanes were deadly. But just to finish off,
you go to the right or maybe the wrong place. Yeah. And they can be served deadly. They really can.
They pour with a heavy hand. They pour with it.
Yeah.
I mean, I learned in New York, I used to always heavily tip the barman on the first drink because it's a free pour, and then I never drink anything less than a quadruple going forward. But that's starters orders in New Orleans. That's like, I only really drink spirits. I mean, I enjoy maybe one beer, and I love a Guinness, but Guinness you can only, I'm. Like my best
only a couple of spots there that you would even think about it. Yeah.
So just going back, we got married in the Marigny Opera House, and our reception was in Antoine's in the Rex Room in Antoine's, which for those that don't know is like, Antoine's is a massive restaurant, apparently the oldest restaurant in America or something like that. The inventor of oysters, Rockefeller, and some other great dishes, and an amazing restaurant. And again, I will stick up for the establishment restaurants in New Orleans. I had my 40th in Commander's Palace, and we had this absinthe oyster dome. And I'm allergic to shellfish, but I don't like to not avail myself of something amazing if it passes me. Sometimes I pay, sometimes I don't. But so we had it in Antoine's, and obviously, we walk in, my wife's in a full wedding dress, and the restaurant all applaud, and it's just beautiful. People love a good time over there, and they see something happening, and they're really happy about it. But what was interesting is, so we got married in the Marigny. Antoine's is across town. It was actually Essence Fest. It was a weekend of Essence Fest, so really busy. But for not very much money, you can hire 2 motorcycle outriders, police motorcycle outriders, and I'm talking about maybe 200 quid, and they will get you through the traffic. And I was a bit like, do we need it? And my friend from over there, he was like, yeah,
you've got a picture. You've got a picture of that on your Instagram, haven't you?
Yeah. It's like one of my
background. You just sort of see him in the background, don't you?
Yeah. I think the puddles, because even though it's not raining, there's always crap on the streets in New Orleans. There's always
potholes, shit.
Yeah, potholes.
I wouldn't pick a dollar up off the floor. But
no. Yeah. And so even though we didn't second line, we had some umbrellas. And we hired this massive, again, all done over the phone. And, even though it was 12 years ago, you can't underestimate how much easier it would have been done to do it now. Like I wanted to get a nice motor. And so I rang up a garage that I knew. I'd seen modified cars. And I said, do you know anyone with something really nice who can drive us to the wedding? And they gave me a number of a guy who gave me a number of a guy who just happened to have a classic Cadillac Coupe de Ville, 50s with fins. It was white. It was beautiful. It was really beautiful. So he drove us there. We have the motorcycle outriders, and I remember thinking, it's the reflection of a city and the culture that is so easy to buy coppers. I don't know. I was kind of like, thank God for thank God for that.
Hey, look, if we've got any listeners in the city, that'll resonate with them.
Jerry,
I don't think anyone's going to argue.
Can Jerry give us a view? And Jerry, our good friend Jerry, he's an ex-police officer. Maybe you can give us an opinion on that.
And they were just so nice, and they got us through. And then, so for the last 200 yards, we walked to Antoine's. Antoine's was amazing. And then the next day, we get up and we get dressed up again. My wife does the makeup, and we just go around the city, and we take the pictures outside the Superdome. And we got chucked off a trolley because they thought we were models for a which is hilarious.
I can see wife and your wife. I'm not sure with you, Mark, but your wife.
I think you're. I think
the three of us are punching. The three of us are punching. Let's not lie. The three of us are punching. All three of us are punching.
Absolutely.
I'm happy to be a fully fledged member of the Punching Up Club, and
the punching trio.
Oh my God. She was like, they were like, you can't do that on here. Like they stopped the trolley and they came up and they're like, you can't do that on here. Because the photographer, he's a professional photographer. He's doing a good job. And they thought we were models. I'm like, no, we got married yesterday. And he was like, he didn't believe us. It was funny. We just wandered around the city and everybody. And it was early doors because we didn't really want to get in other people's business. So it was like 7 a.m.
Yeah.
So there was the Walk of Shame crew who were obviously crying out from the other sides of the street, like whooping and carrying on. And then there were just the early people going about their business who were loving it. And it was felt like proper local celebrities. And then of course the two bums on the side of the Mississippi who went apeshit when they saw my waistcoat. But and then 5 years later, Beyonce's sister gets married in the same venue. But
wow.
But you're trendsetters, Mark. You're trendsetters.
Somebody else quite famously. It's a lovely venue. It is a lovely venue, and they put on some amazing stuff there. And the story that the guy bought it as an FU to the Catholic Church is a nice one. And even the people who live next to it are lovely. They were all out waving and whatever. But like I said, we had we had 8 guests, and then there were 2 people working at the venue. There was the officiant and his assistant. There was the camera guy who I didn't really want a videographer. In the end, I rang someone up who does the sideline cameras for the Saints and does weddings on the side. So he did it. And then
look at this man. Look at this man.
I know, but it was just like one of them things.
Not in a horrible way, Mark. If you were doing it now, if Mark was doing it now, he'd just phone up Nick Underhill and say, "Can I get your team down? Just come to my wedding."
Yeah.
Mike Triplett just talking about the technique of you walking up the aisle.
I can see that.
The stride, good stride, good heel to toe ratio.
Yeah. You learn nothing in the off season. Needs to go back.
I was going to say, you told us originally about getting married in New Orleans when we met last summer, and Mike and I had bandied around the idea of doing a podcast last summer. And I remember saying to Mike, we have got to get Marc on to talk about his wedding.
Yeah.
Like, if no one believes that there are people in this country who absolutely adore New Orleans, this will convince them. And to be honest, we held off inviting you on until we was a bit more polished. I say a bit more polished.
Because
we didn't want to do you a disservice.
It's all gone downhill.
Come on now. You had Ross Jackson on. Come on. And actually, all your guests have been amazing. I've really enjoyed listening, and people have even touched on it. There's a slight, not resentment, but I mean, so I used to be on, I think it was called Black and Gold. So there was Saints Report, which was the website that everybody was on, you know, what they called, not chat rooms, forums. And then there was one called Black and Gold, which I went on because I don't know, there was some things said on Saints Report that I didn't really like politically wise. Because let's face it, Louisiana is a quite conservative state.
Absolutely.
New Orleans is
you've got
different from the rest of Louisiana.
Yeah, it's a very typical southern state in that the big cities are blue and the states are red. Very typical of the region.
And just Saints Report was big and unwieldy, and don't get me wrong, it was amazing, and I went on there quite a lot. But there was a little side one, I think it was called Black and Gold, and there was a couple of things on there, and one of the most amazing things is they had a thread, like a pinned thread, which was some of the more regular posters posting during Katrina. Some of them had decided to leave. Some of them had decided to stick it out. And then there was obviously, and it was minute by minute, you know, and it was and I'm just that should be in the Smithsonian. It was an incredible, quite heart-wrenching, you know, I'm going to stick it out. You know what? I got some beers.
It's it would have been a live account of trauma.
Exactly.
Which in itself,
an incredible historical account. Yeah.
And especially
do you know what is
now.
I'll tell you what is in the Smithsonian.
Yeah.
Go on. In the Smithsonian is Hank Paulson's cell phone that he managed a financial crisis on. So Hank Paulson was the Treasury Secretary during the 2008 crisis. That is nowhere near as important as those messages that you've just talked about. Because it's a phone. It phones anything. It's not nothing. It's it's an inanimate object. That was what people were going through, and the documentation of what they went through. That's far more important.
It was absolutely incredible. And there was and I can't even remember why I brought it up now. So I've wandered off there. But but that was my connection with a lot of the city and a lot of the people like the Discords that people are on now and whatever. But that's the point. There was a bloke on there, an English bloke, who said, it was neither of you, I don't think, but it could have been anyone. I know it wasn't either of you, but he was like, I'm the biggest UK Saints fan, and and I was like, cool, you can have it. I don't want it, you know.
Yeah. I think I know where it might be, but I'm not going to say any names.
Dan, leave it alone. Leave it alone, son.
Honestly, and then I've you know, and so what I was going to say is you get weirdly sort of, no, this is my thing. And a couple of people on your podcast have mentioned it, and you have to let that go. And I'm not very good at letting it go. And I think the more people I meet, actually, the easier it is to let it go, you know. But when I didn't know many Saints fans, and you come across another one, especially on an American forum site, you think, mate, just pipe down, you know.
Yeah.
It's not. No one cares, you know.
I remember seeing there was a Saints.
Sorry, Dan. I was. Go on, mate.
Go on. No, you go. You're all right.
Okay, Dan.
I have to say,
I know I've got a delay. I've got a delay.
Go on. Don't throw anyone under the bus. I actually came to your defense once on Twitter, and I deleted it minutes later.
On there when you were on the Saints Report, and it was like another English guy would turn up and say, I know it's me, and sort of this thing. Part of the reason I think that me and Dan started this pod is, and you know, you're a prime example, we want to hear from other sort of UK Saints fans. It's not about this is mine, this is us, this is me. It's about actually let's talk to other people who are like us. Let's promote the community. And so we're not sort of, and that's we're the complete opposite of that. It is literally like me and Dan started this purely, and when we first talked about it, we were like, we don't care if 2 people listen to it. We really don't care. It's a passion of ours. You know, our first pod when me and Dan spoke together, it was probably my most enjoyable pod purely because I was really uncomfortable when Dan was sort of saying we should do it. And then we got on the pod and we just talked to each other as Saints fans. And obviously we had quite a few drinks, and it was like, I just enjoyed it. And then it was like, let's now feed that out to other people, because I want to hear it from other people. I want to hear from other Saints fans. This is not our thing. This is this is a sort of almost like a, obviously mostly UK, but an international thing. Let's just expand it.
Absolutely. That's what it's like when we went to the baseball. We all just sat around that table, didn't we, at the bar, sharing each other's stories. Me and Marc were showing off our Saints sneakers, trainers, whatever you want to call them, and it was a community experience where a lot of us had never met each other for the first time. That was the first time we met each other, and we you wouldn't have thought it from the way we was just crowding around that table, shoveling down that Popeyes, and it was a great day. And that's for us. That was like almost an impetus for us. I sort of said to Mike, we've got to do this. We just have that conversation with people and talk about their experiences. You know, you, Marc Daly, other people, just hearing how they come to where they are now I think it's a remarkable thing when you think it's a sport that's played at the best 3,500 miles away
for so short amount of time as well. Every year, so short. Season.
It's like we're 3 games in already this weekend. For fuck's sake, slow down. But I want to watch I want every game now. I want to watch it now. I enjoy it so much. I enjoy the community. I enjoy the camaraderie. It's just, I feel like I'm part of something. A lot of the thing that I lost when I was a Spurs fan, or I am still a Spurs fan, but a lot of things I lost as part of that was it changed. Football changed, soccer changed. And I feel like this is different because you do feel like we're a small community and we can engage with each other and be friends. And it's not as big. It's not all. It's huge
in the UK at least, and you see that whenever the London games are. Whenever the London game's on, it's a growing community in this country, but it's still a fairly small community in this country if you really think about it. Whenever you go to a London game, it doesn't really matter who you're standing next to. You know, it could be a Falcons fan, it can be a you know.
Oh, whoa! Hold on. No.
With the exception,
to be honest. You can, but you can have a conversation. I poured
a pint over a Vikings fan at London.
Yeah, we know you did, man.
Well. You see, the thing is, one of my problems is I obviously hate the Falcons. I love Atlanta. It's a great city.
Yeah.
And I have a real problem with that because I love the music and that's a problem. Whereas.
Carolina's a shithole. No, it's not a shithole. It's not great though. It's not great. It's very sterile. It's like Canary Wharf.
Interesting. I think that's
Downtown.
Interesting.
Yeah,
because that's another thing I'd say about going to New Orleans is because driving abroad is a bit, especially on the wrong side of the road. But if you could be bothered, you could get to Florida in 6 hours. You can get to Texas.
Yeah.
You can get or you can just go down to they call it the Redneck Riviera, drive along there, or you go to Biloxi, or you go, and there's so much.
We've been to Biloxi. I love it down there. Ocean Springs, Biloxi is great.
Yeah. I just, I find, I remember one night we got in the car and we just drove until I was knackered and we got in a motel. And I think it was like Pensacola or somewhere like that. And it was just, it's just, and then we were back in New Orleans we were coming back for there's a famous guy's second line, Batiste. He had just died, and one of the older Batiste, and he had just died, and there was a huge second line, so we wanted to get back in time, but we managed to go quite far and get back, and yeah, no, a lot of fun. There's so much in the city. I mean, for my 40th birthday, I went to Commander's Palace for lunch. And then, so we rented and it's the best place I've ever rented. I know Airbnb is, I understand
frowned upon.
People
Yeah.
I understand why they don't like Airbnb. But, you know, I've had a couple of nice ones. And I had one on St. Charles with a massive veranda with a bed out there so you could sleep out there. And I went to Commander's Palace and then I slept it off on the veranda listening to the trolleys. And then I had Modella and Popeyes for my, you know, and for me, that was like the perfect, and the sound of the trolley for me is like one of my favorite sounds in the world, you know, the train.
You live in like our best life on these trips.
But it's so obtainable. It's so obtainable.
Yeah, it's so hard to do. You just got to prepare yourself. You just got to say, I'm going to do it.
Just got to go.
Yeah.
You know, and like,
I think, sorry, Dan, I was going to say, it's like
go on.
We've now been.
You never do this on other podcasts. You've been so good.
No, but it's like, but Mark, it's like we've been going 2 hours.
Yeah, and we haven't done.
I could go for another 2.
Shadow of a doubt, without a shadow of a doubt, we could talk to you for another 2 hours. Based on that, we'd love to get you fucking back on. I'm telling you.
Yeah,
because like, we're 2 hours in, and we feel like we haven't even started the conversation. Yeah, but I think actually, based on the fact that it's that sort of length of time, we need to sort of maybe wind it down and sort of just ask 100%. A couple of out questions, Dan, don't you think?
Yeah, go on. Yeah,
it's fine. I was gonna try and it was a leading comment. So Mark reference to Batiste. I was going to say, I have reached out to John Batiste to try and get him to come on the podcast.
Wow.
So if anyone does know John Batiste, it's a bit of a reach.
Mark, don't be shocked at that.
You want to see the emails I've sent to people. Anthony Mackie's had an email off of me. John Batiste.
Who's trying to book people
Wendell Pierce. I'll haul myself out to any of these people to talk to them about living in New Orleans because I want to hear it.
New Orleans people have got time, and they will do. I mean, I don't know.
Just like get through their PR company.
They've got time for people. Like I always tell the same story about New York. I went over there to do some business. I'm in a man's shop, and I'm talking to the owner of the shop, right? And another customer tells me to keep my mouth shut because he's trying to talk to the sales assistant over here. And I'm like, and I just laughed. I'm like, that's New York. I'm talking to the owner of this business that you're in. You're patronizing this business and you're telling me to be quiet. Okay, I've got a big gob, but we're doing business in this guy's shop and you're telling us to pipe down because you're talking to the sales assistant. And I was just laughing. I was just laughing because to me, that's New York. In New Orleans, it's like, I don't know, just the bonhomie and the so there's a lot of Southern charm, but it's not just that. There's just that
different
interest.
Normal Southern charm, yeah.
I love the South. I love Kentucky. I love all the places. I love genteel people with manners and the way they speak, and even roughnecks. They've got a turn of phrase which you're like, Jesus, this is just beautiful. But there is something about people in New Orleans, they're interested in you. As soon as you walk in, as soon as they encounter, they want to know. You got a story? I want to hear your story. Yeah. I got a story too. I'm going to tell you my story. But I want to hear your story because we live in that. We live on those kind of encounters because it is a hospitality city. And, you know, there are some things wrong with the hospitality city. You know, there's inequality between servers and that. And, you know, working with drunk people as I do, you know, most of my life and as in a service industry and stuff, you know, I also understand the difficulties in that. So there is, you know, that, but just shopkeepers, everybody wants to know your story. They want to chat. And like we've talked for 2 hours. I go to a bookshop in New Orleans to buy one book and I don't get out of there for 4 hours and I come out with 50 books, not just because he sold them to me, but because we've talked about books and we've
he's interested in you. It's like the interest in other people's stories is fascinating to me. As you were saying, when you're there, it's not, you don't go to a place and they just talk to you. You talk to them. You have a conversation, which you don't get very often.
No,
you know what I mean. You go in somewhere and it's like literally, it's like passing the day, do your thing. People are interested.
They have an attitude which. So I always say people don't have any time for you in London because they don't think you're staying. Right? They think you come to, whether it's a year or a week or whatever. You're just here. You work for a bank or you work, or you're a tourist or whatever. Because it's a very cosmopolitan city and people are on their way, especially towards the centre. And someone said it's a real small town city. So the welcome is very small town. But the other thing is they've kind of flipped it. They're like, you're only going to be here for a short time. So we want to give you not exactly some memories, but we want our encounter to be worth it for us. We want a good chat.
Yeah.
And two, we want you to go away thinking, okay, that was worth my time being there. And again, working in the service industry, it's so easy to say, fuck them, they're not coming back. They're here for a week.
Yeah.
If we get 20 quid out of them, we'll get 20 quid out of the next person. If they don't come back, it's fine. Whereas in New Orleans, it's like everybody wants you to be their local, they want you to be Norm from Cheers. They want to say your name when you come in. If it's true or not, I don't care because I'm buying it. I'm buying it, I'm drinking the Kool-Aid.
We went to a bar and we went a couple of times. They gave us all shot glasses and memorabilia to take home with us. So have this.
Yeah.
Because it was that hospitality of, we've enjoyed your company. We want you to take something away to remember us by.
And they can't possibly do that to everyone. But maybe they do. I don't know.
They might. Just because they feel that.
It feels like they do.
On.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And it just
on that note of kinship with the city, genuinely, and it's only because we've been going for over 2 hours. Totally, I think we should probably wind this down. And genuinely, Mark, and I think I say this, and I think Dan will obviously back me up on this. We have got to get you back on very soon.
Well, Dan, if you have a slow week and Anthony Mackie cancels, I'll
I don't think we need to. I was going to say we don't need to ask Mark his predictions. He's quite clear. It's 17-0.
So I know. I think we'll maybe 16-1 because we will. So I had some predictions written down. One involved Jimmy Graham against the Falcons falling apart like the car in Blues Brothers at the end of Blues Brothers because he's going to score 4, and then at the end of the game, it's like his arm's going to fall off because he's it's all he's got. And just like what's his name? One of my favorite players. I was thinking that Mark Ingram would come back, sign a one-day contract to retire, but accidentally get thrown on the field because all our running backs are dead, and legs fall off. And they're like, get on the field.
If you saw Mark on that Fox thing, which was like apparently ended up being a little bit of a
the ICU.
He's still got it, hasn't he? He's still fucking got it. I mean, God, I wouldn't like to get hit by Mark Ingram the way he hit that fella, and he's a young fella.
Yeah. Okay, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, no.
I'll give him a bit of shake and bake. I'll be gone.
I love
train station at rush hour.
I've seen you live
at rush hour.
It's good to have dreams. Good to have So I don't care what happens in the season as long as the football's entertaining. We like I say, as long as every second half is better than the first, we improve. Because what a lot of people don't, what I always take from the Minnesota Miracle is in the first half, I had never felt so paralyzed.
No,
I'd never seen a game where we had nothing.
Yeah.
And then the second half, we're right back in it. They take it back, they break it down, whatever. Drew does up some old magic, and for me that's what I take from that game. And I hate the Vikings. I hate them.
Yeah.
But
it would just be nice to. It would just be nice to have a couple of comfortable games, though, wouldn't it, Mark? Where you don't have to wait for the second half magic. Just get it right. Get out to a lead. If you get out to a lead, you ain't coming back on our defense. I can assure you of that.
Also, those games where Michael Thomas will just you know, where he'll be back. That's why I want a game like that, because in the games like we're in, he's amazing. He's a steady pair of hands. He's like, what's that guy who crap, what was his name? I'm not gonna remember, so we'll move on. But there's always the guys who you're never going to throw a 30-yard pass to them, but 7 or 8 yards because you're third and long, and they're going to hold it. Willie Snead. I always thought Willie Snead was a bit of a nothing, really. But he would wrestle the ball, and he would be good. You know, you're like, 3rd and 8, we're going to punt. They're never going to do it. And then suddenly Willie Snead has got a tiny inch, and like Michael Thomas is good for that, but I really want to see Michael Thomas like.
Do you know, I want to see
Michael
Thomas line up in the slot against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and beat the absolute fucking living daylights out of Devin White all game twice this season. Come at me. Don't put your nickel on me. I'll have Devin White and I'll fuck him up. That's what I want this season. Mike Thomas, if you hear this, go fuck Devin White up. Big time. Like,
I think that's
a shit out of him.
That's a pretty positive note to end on, don't you think, Dan?
All of that.
Thomas,
let's go. Who that? Super Bowl, baby. Super Bowl.
16-1, and only because we will show. Because who's the last game? It's not the Falcons, is it? It is the last game. Isn't it?
No, it's Falcons.
Falcons. The last game where we rest players.
The only reason we're going to show them so much contempt, we'll roll out
disrespect.
The practice squad. Because we're already in the. So we're like, we care.
We might even get a call for that one, Mike. Play running back. I'll get a yard.
Bring a yard. That's it.
Mark,
so
thank you so much, mate. Really appreciate it. And without a shadow of a doubt,
I think this is my favourite episode we've ever done by a long fucking way.
You say that to all the girls.
No, I mean it. This is
genuinely, Mark. We're gonna get you back on, aren't we, Dan? We're gonna get Mark on, because not in a horrid way. We've been going for this long. We could be fucking talking for hours. Yeah, it's brilliant.
I got notes. I got other shirts. I got all sorts. I got trinkets.
Mark, we absolutely we absolutely appreciate it. I think me and Dan would both say we fully appreciate you, my friend. Thank you very much.
And it's just lovely to talk. And it's just like I said. What I've really enjoyed about your podcast is you kick the bloody doors off. It's great. Let's just all talk about New Orleans. Let's all talk about the Saints. And, you know, it doesn't belong to anyone. And we'll throw it in the pot and we'll make a beautiful thing. It's lovely.
Absolutely.
Really enjoyed it.
Hopefully, I hope we get to see you in the London games. If you can get a ticket, let us know. We'll definitely hook up and your son a drink.
And if you can't get a ticket, we've got a couple of contacts who'll probably be able to get you a ticket anyway. So
there's a lot floating around. We'll see. It's just, you know, I think it's a little test. I'm going to see what his attention span is like, whereas the older ones bang up for it. So it'll be good.
Cool.
Good.
Brilliant. Mark, thank you very much.
Appreciate you, Mark. Appreciate you,
gentlemen.
Take care.
Next time.
Bud.
All right.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.